Federal prosecutors expecting to rest their case in the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking and racketeering trial. Jurors hearing more than 6 weeks of testimony from nearly 36 witnesses. Prosecutors argue that their case proves that the music mogul ran a criminal enterprise that used businesses to lure and traffic victims. Both sides have played recordings of the alleged sexual freak-offs, and the jury has seen nearly 45 minutes of the explicit videos. Combs has pleaded not guilty to all charges and denies all wrongdoing. Civil trial attorney Tre Lovell joins me now for more. So, Tre, while cross-examining a federal agent, the defense is actually reading messages showing that one of Combs' alleged victims, Jane, was the one arranging, or at least one of them, arranging these sexual encounters with a male escort. What do you make of how they presented these messages?
That's powerful. It's showing that she has consent, that she wants to be part of it. If you're being sex trafficked, she sure seems to have enjoyed it a lot. That's going to be the argument of the defense. This type of evidence with the text messages where she's setting it up, where she's telling Combs how much she likes him, where she's speaking favorably of the sex workers and texting them, all this goes against this coercion aspect that the government's trying to prove, and really burns up and bolsters the consent argument for the defense.
The defense is not calling any witnesses, including Combs. What do you make of the legal strategy here? And do you think Combs should have testified?
The only reason to not call any witnesses is if you're absolutely certain you have reasonable doubt and you don't want to do anything to detract from that or take away from it, even calling your own favorable witnesses. So when they decided to do that, that shows me that they feel very comfortable. They poked enough holes in the case that there's reasonable doubt. And even through their own witnesses, which I think they could call some good witnesses, they don't even want to take a chance on detracting from it and pushing against it. So it's surprising, but it shows the confidence in the defense.
So the prosecution had the jurors hear from Combs' ex-girlfriends, former employees, male escorts, even rapper Kid Cudi. What do you think? Was it enough?
I don't think so. I think when you start with the premise of trying to prove sex trafficking and racketeering based on personal relationships with girlfriends, it's an uphill battle. And you really have to come hard on the evidence that shows that they were coerced, they didn't want to be part of these relationships, they're constantly trying to get out. And that just wasn't the case. There's so much evidence that shows they were in love with Combs. They stayed for long periods of time, even during this sex trafficking time. And that they helped orchestrate and get the freak-offs, to set them up. So there's just so much reasonable doubt, so much evidence against the prosecution. I don't think they're able to pull it off. The only one they may have is the transportation to engage in prostitution. And that's going to come down to whether or not, these are sex workers, which is legal, or prostitution, which is illegal.
Tre Lovell, glad we have you on this. All right, well, Tre, the defense is not calling any witnesses, including Combs. What do you make of that legal strategy?
As I was saying, the only reason not to call any witnesses is if you are absolutely certain you have reasonable doubt and you don't want to do anything that's going to detract from that, take away from that, which includes calling your own favorable witnesses. So when they did that, it shows that they have the utmost confidence that they've already poked enough holes in the case and are ready to go to closing arguments.
All right, Rena Roy, Tre Lovell, thanks, guys.